begin. Welcome attendees, thank you for joining. Welcome, we'll get started shortly. All right, looks like we are, I think we're live on Facebook. Yes, we are live on Facebook. Welcome attendees. We are just letting folks join us and getting set up. We'll get started really soon. Welcome, welcome everyone. Watching live on Facebook. We'll get started here just a little bit. Always like to give folks a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of grace to come into Zoom. It can be hard to connect sometimes, but I appreciate everyone who's here on time. I promise we won't keep you waiting too much longer. Well, Lori, I think I'm going to do my brief introduction and then get the ball rolling, hand it off to you.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Wing. I'm one of the coordinators of the Fix a Fair, which are City of Portland, Oregon events. They're usually in-person resource events. Since the pandemic, we've been bringing you workshops that would normally be at the fairs, but through this format online instead. So it's Fix a Fair at home or at work or wherever you happen to be right now. I will just put in a plug. We hope to be moving back to hybrid, some in person like we used to, and then continuing some online events starting in the fall. So with that, I'm very excited to have Lori joining us as a volunteer with Financial Beginnings. Thank you for joining, Lori. Please take it away.
Thank you, Wing. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. As Wing stated, my name is Lori Williams, and I am the Financial Education Specialist at Unitas Community Credit Union. And I'm really excited to be here with you this afternoon talking about savings and retirement. And our topic is Get Set to Own Your Financial Future. One thing that I really love about this subject is it's very personal to me. I wish I would have had someone or a resource to sit in so that I could fully understand what is going to be shared with you today. And this is why it's so great to partner with Financial Beginnings so that we can bring this information to all of you. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start this PowerPoint. If you had $1 million, would you be rich? Do-dee-do-dee-do-dee-do. This really isn't a game show, but I wanted to give you a little bit of time to think about this. So for some of you, the answer may be yes. Really, for the most of us, the answer is no. If you had $1 million, let's just say that you had $1 million and you won it through the lottery. Right there, if you won it through the lottery and you were so fortunate, you would probably be taxed at least 32% if you wanted to cash it all out. 8% of it would automatically go to the state, and that's not including lottery taxes, and 24% of it would go to the federal government. So you would have just a little bit less than $700,000. And the average median sales price of a home right now, if you wanted to buy a home, is probably going to be between 350 and 450. And I feel that saying 350,000 is really generous. The cost of homes has really skyrocketed, and we can contribute that to cost of inflation, cost of goods. Lumber's become really expensive, and we're going to talk about some of these things and how it impacts your income and why your savings and your retirement are so important. So $1 million, if you're already taxed and you're down to a little less than 700, and if you want to purchase a home for 450,000, that's going to give you still less than 300,000. If you wanted to buy a new car, there's a great new Lexus utility vehicle that I would love to have, and I'm pretty sure those run around $80,000. I'll never have it, but that would not leave a lot of money left over. That's not including if I won $1 million, I would want to take a vacation. I know for myself, I do have a home, and because I know I wouldn't be rich if I won $1 million, I would be investing. And we're going to talk about why I would be investing. Why should we start talking about retirement now? We've got our early life, we have our work life, and then we have our retirement. Well, as we all know, time flies. If you are joining us and you are in the age range of 13 to 25, this may seem a little far out, but you're really, truly the audience that I really want you to really catch this part. If you are 13 to 25, please make sure that you are really thinking about, if you have a job, do you have any type of retirement plan with your current employer? And if you are under 18 and not working right now, I really want this seed to be planted, that is going to be a really important thing, that when you start working is to understand what kind of benefits that you have. Oftentimes it's not until you're about 18 that you are qualified for retirement benefits, but make sure that you understand what these retirement benefits are. How many hours do you have to work? How old do you need to be? How do these retirement benefits work? And the reason I share this is, especially in the last 2 years, we've seen such an adjustment in hybrid work models, hybrid school models, virtual fairs, virtual school. And what I've really seen a lot of is students that are going to high school with virtual were able to start working almost 40 hours to contribute to a lot of their households. And especially for seniors, a lot of our seniors are turning 18. If they're working at Walmart, or they're working at McDonald's, or they're working at Starbucks, they are qualified at that age. And if they're working 30 plus hours, they also qualify to start contributing towards a retirement plan. So this is really important. If you currently are not contributing towards a retirement plan and you're not sure if you have one, please ask your employer. And if you do have this and you haven't joined, please join. And if you do have this one, please just do a financial checkup for yourself. Does your employer match if you pay up to 6%? Does your employer match if you pay up to 30%? This would be a really great time to check up. And the reason is because we go through our early life very quickly. We work the majority of our lifetime, and most of us want to retire. And when we retire, how are you going to pay our bills if we're not working? If we don't have a paycheck and we're not earning income, how are we going to pay our bills? It's really great if you have a home and you start your personal wealth journey by owning a home. And if you can get that paid off, that's a great, phenomenal goal to have, to build your personal wealth as well as to start your retirement. But there are still things that you're going to have. You're going to have property taxes. You're going to have electricity bills. You are going to have food, gas, the cost of living. And we're really seeing right now the cost of living can go up, which is called inflation. And we never have control of how much that inflation is going to go up. So it's really important to start thinking about a retirement and to make sure that you have a savings plan. This is why we're talking about this now. And no time like the present, especially with the last 2 years. All right, so this is a really great scenario. And again, I'm just going to share a couple of my own personal experiences. I really love this slide. And this is a visual. If you can't see this, I just want to share with you verbally. We're going to talk about 2 different scenarios and which scenario puts you further ahead. This scenario in my own personal life would be the journey of me and one of my best friends. And we actually talked about this over the summer when we were walking, and I asked her if I could share this in some of my financial education videos, and she said yes. So number 1, here's your first scenario. And remember, the question is, which scenario puts you further ahead? Number 1 is if you invest $200 per month for 10 years between the age of 20 to 30, and then you stop, you never put another drop in until you're age 60. So we're going to reevaluate this account at 60. So there's the first one. And I'm not going to use my friend's real name, but I am going to call her Christina. So Christina would have started investing $200 per month for 10 years between the ages of 20 and 30. And then I'm going to be scenario number 2, which is truly what journey I had in my life, was investing 200. It might have been a little bit more than that, but I didn't start until I was age 30. So the scenario for number 2 is investing $200 per month from age 30 to 60. In my own life, I really did not truly understand the value of my 401k. I came from a family where it was never discussed, and my mom and my dad, A, they didn't really talk about finances, but B, they had a retirement plan that was different. They had a pension plan. So the discussion of even a 401k, that was not anything they had experienced. So why would they think about talking to me about that? And I didn't know to even ask these questions. I knew it was available, but I really did not understand the value. So Christina, scenario number 1, this would be one of my friends that started between the ages of 20 and 30 and contributed in that account. And then when she turned 30, she stopped working and built her family, and did not go back to work until just recently in the last 3 years, when both her daughters were old enough to go off to college. So here is a really interesting scenario. And I can tell you, I've lived it. It is crazy to see the difference. Here is, if you can visually see this, here is what happens in scenario 1. You will see with scenario 1 that at the end, of 10 years, starting at age 20 to 30, and then stopping until 60. When we look at this account at the age of 60, you have over $827,000 in this account. And in the scenario number 2, which is where I can personally relate to, I really did not understand the full value of a 401k plan until I was about 30. And so I started investing, and you will see that investing starting 10 years later and continuing to invest until 60 gives you under 500,000. It gives you about $457,000. So this is a really big gap. And, in this, with Christina starting at the age of 20 versus Lori starting at the age of 30, this is over $350,000 difference. And that's not even including the interest. So this is really, Christina took 10 years out of her life. She only contributed at $200 per month, $24,000 out of her pocket to grow this investment into over 800,000. Whereas for myself, over the course of just even 10 years, that's $72,000. So there's just a lot of money and a lot of change. And the reason is because when you start some type of retirement, oftentimes you make interest off that, but you're also going to make compound interest. And that's really the great secret and the greatest piece of information that I hope you walk away with. Savings, retirement, compound interest. Okay, here's inflation. Again, this is why we are talking about savings and retirement. And I brought this up just briefly. We are hearing every single day. If you drive, you see when you go to fill up your tank. I think I'm down to about 20 miles in my automobile, and I'm just cringing because I've got to fill up my tank. And a year and a half ago, it was about $2.39 to fill up a tank of gas. Now it's about $4 or $2.39 a gallon. Now it is closer to $4.60 here in our local area to fill up just 1 gallon. That's not including, I have a push lawnmower, but I also have a gas lawnmower. I have a gas blower that I use. I have a really large yard, and I have quite a few plants and trees. So when the leaves are falling, it takes me a long time. I really can't rake them as fast as I can with the blower. So these are things that use gas as well. Oil changes, but here's just a really good example, if you are with us on our slideshow today, of the cost of a movie ticket. And this goes back to 1913, when you could get a movie ticket for 7 cents. Shows in 1967, the average was about $1.20. And what's really funny is if you look in 2021, this says admit one for $9.16. Well, that's pretty much that $9.16 is probably on a cheap night. That's not the full. If you go on a Friday at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, it's going to be more. But this is an average that we really wanted to bring home. You can see that this is just a movie ticket, how that inflation, the cost of that good, the cost of that entertainment has gone up. And that's why when we talk about inflation, we're talking about the cost of goods. So recently, I just renewed my insurance, and I pay my car insurance every 6 months so that I have some savings. I have to save to spend that money, and I spend to save. That's why I pay every 6 months, because it saves me about $400 in that 6 months if I pay for it all in one big bunch. Well, we have several automobiles, and my daughters are both going to college. I have to usually provide their GPA so I can get a discount. There's a fun fact, if you did not know that, nice tip to take away. And my insurance had gone up really a lot. So I had called them to ask them why. I wanted to make sure that they were giving my daughters their student discounts. Why had it gone up? We weren't driving that much. And really, the logical answer that made absolute sense to me was that every year they have more claims. And when they have more claims, especially if they're uninsured motorists, that always costs more money for insured motorists. The second item is, if your car is in an accident and it can be repaired, the cost of parts has gone up. The cost of parts has gone up. When are you going to get that part? How much does it cost to get those parts? If gas has gone up and it has doubled, and we rely on parts from New York to come to Oregon, and the cost of that gas for that semi truck to bring those, as well as the semi truck drivers' wages, that really increases our cost. So there's just a really good way to talk about inflation and the cost of goods. We're really seeing the cost of goods highly increased for building a home. Lumber is very expensive right now. There are a lot of materials that go into building a home, and when inflation, the cost of good raises, that means that the total price is going to raise. And that's why typically in your earnings and your wages every year, when you have increases in your wages, it's to be comparable to the cost of goods and the inflation. So it's really important when you get these pay increases, if you are like me, those typically start at the beginning of the year. We get our annual earnings reviewed, and then we know if we will be getting an increase in our earnings or not. And then we are able to look at those earnings and see if that's going to be copacetic with the cost of living. And not only that, but something that I learned early on, because I was a late bloomer with my 401k, was that when I get raises, if it is 3%, if it's 2%, I like to take that and I like to have that added into my 401k, because if I'm accustomed to living off of what I already made, it's just a great way for me to make up time. So inflation is a big part of why we're talking about savings and retirement, because in your retirement, you want to be saving your money to retire. Again, when you retire, how are you going to pay your bills? The cost of living goes up every year. If anyone can think of something where the cost goes down, let me know. But I really don't know anything that has a price that comes down. It's typically always going up, and that's why they call it inflation. It's inflating. All right, compound interest. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. And he who understands it earns it. He who doesn't, well, they pay it. So this is really important. And again, I wish that I would have had someone explain this to me. So here is how compound interest, it's a formula, and they call this formula the rule of 72. How much would be in the account at age 70, assuming you never added to it? We have a graph here, and it shows, if you're age 20 and you've got $5,000, and then that account's worth $10,000 at the age of 30, these go in 10-year increments. How much total interest would you earn in 50 years? So you earn interest. You also earn compound interest. So this is what's the beauty of compound interest. So how much would be in the account at age 70, assuming you never added to it? If you started this account based off of this rule of 72, and the rule of 72 is like an algorithm. So we are going to say that this is a rate of return of 7.2% each year on your compound interest. And remember, this is like an algorithm type of formula. So even though there's going to be some years where it goes down, it usually always averages out, levels up. So if you start putting in money at 20 and it's $5,000, and we look at every 10 years up until your age of 70, by the time that you are 70, based off of the rule of 72 and having interest plus compound interest, this account should be worth $160,000. So your $5,000 is going to grow every month in interest. And then it grows in an extra 7.2% in compound interest. And that's how this works. In the interest accumulation over 50 years, because that's a little bit different than your compound interest, you have two layers. The interest that you earn in 50 years is $155,000. The rest is all the compounding interest. So it's just layers. It's two different layers of interest, and it's like an algorithm, and it's a formula. This could be a whole workshop on itself. All right, what are you saving? Long-term goals you're saving for? Well, the biggest long-term, I think for most of us, is when we retire. What are some types of investment, and when do you want to retire? So I'm just going to let you know, the majority of us can retire from the ages of 62, 67. But what are some type of investments that we could start putting our money in for retirement and for saving? Well, I'm going to share some with you. And I've already talked about really a 401k a lot. And the reason I've really talked about a 401k is because most employers offer a 401k, not all, but a 401k is a really great benefit and feature that your employer offers you. And something, for instance, we have Boeing here. What's really great about Boeing, and if I would have known about how Boeing's retirement benefits were, I think that Boeing is a company I may have wanted to work for when I was going into the workforce. And this is the reason why. And I have not checked this in over 8 months, so things could have changed. But when I last checked this for Boeing, Boeing would match. If you took 30% of your earnings, they would match up to 30% of your earnings. So that means that for every dollar that I made, if I contributed 30 cents into my 401k, they would contribute 30 cents. So that would be out of $1, 60 cents towards my retirement. And that is what's so really great about a 401k when you have an employer, is understanding how much will they match. Some employers may match 4%. So if you take 4% out of each one of your paychecks and your employer is going to match 4%, that is free money. And that's just the beginning of the wheel. There's 3 parts. There's how much are you going to contribute? Is your employer going to match? And then you've got interest and then compound interest. If you are self-employed, that's a different avenue. And this is why these next couple slides are going to be really important, because I am not self-employed. So my employer, as one of the benefits and features, offers a 401k, and I take advantage of that. Here are some other type. We've got mutual funds. So mutual funds, this is really great. So for my retirement, we have a lot of things in our mutual fund, and mutual funds are stocks and bonds, hybrids. They have active and passive. And what that means is they have a large combination of things going on. Amazon is a really good example. So maybe some of the stocks that this mutual funds has is in Amazon. Amazon's great. A lot of people, especially in the last 2 years, we know have really used Amazon. It was a lot easier for people to shop online, have it delivered to their house. So there's one. Energy, medical. Mutual funds are an assortment of different stocks. And that's what's so great, is that someone manages this for you, and they manage all kinds of different things. Energy is a huge thing. If you have mutual funds, you might have stocks in Amazon, you might have stocks in energy, you may have stocks in medical field, medical research. Here's a really good one to bring up. A lot of our population has diabetes. So if you have diabetes and that's part of your daily life and your life journey, you may be someone that is going to be on medication for the rest of your life. And that's why that research is really important. And that's why that medicine is really crucial and important. So this is how mutual funds really work. And when we talk about how they're managed, whether it's active or passive, an active means that there is a money manager that is really doing a lot of research. And it can cost money to have this kind of a mutual fund, because someone's doing the research to grow your money based off of your goals. Passive is going to be when it's a specific group of stocks that are being followed, and not as much research is put into it. But mutual funds are really common in a lot of retirement plans. Again, if you're self-employed, this is going to be really important for you to understand. And are you going to want to start looking in this to yourself, or are you going to want to hire an expert? Investment portfolio. Here's something that's also really important. When we talk about savings and retirement, another big part of this picture is that when you go into the workforce, what are you working for? What are you doing with your earnings? For a lot of us, I know for myself, some of my personal wealth is owning a home, owning my car. My home grows in value. We are really lucky to live in the state of Oregon as far as our home ownership values continuing to go up. But you've got 4 main sections when we talk about an investment portfolio. You have cash, which is liquid. You always need to have liquidity. So cash is when you need to get that cash out, it's accessible. And that usually is in the form of a savings, a CD, real estate, that would be your home, or if you have a second home, or if you have rental properties, that's another way. That is part of you investing your money in something that you think is going to grow. And this is part of your portfolio. Bonds, this is, you can buy bonds, and this can be through the state, federal. And really, when you buy bonds from the state or federal government, this is you buying money so that the federal government or the state is getting a loan from you, and then they're going to give you a bigger return back. Then you've got stocks. You know, I mentioned Boeing earlier. When you work for a company like Boeing, not only do you get a 401k, but you may have stock options.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. Looks like we lost Lori. We'll give her a second to come back on and join us. Just some connectivity. Yeah, I was, thank you. Someone just let me know I was muted. I was talking to everyone and I was muted, but I was just saying, I think that Lori froze and hopefully she'll come back to us. Let's see if I get a message from her. And thank you for your patience. Okay, I just got a message that she's logging back in. I feel like I should have some Jeopardy music playing or something.
Hello again, everyone.
Hello again.
I disappeared for a moment.
You did. You froze for a while.
Okay.
Before we lost you completely. So I'm not quite sure where you left off. The last thing that everybody heard.
We were talking about mutual funds, and we were talking about the different stocks, possibly energy. Maybe I had an energy lapse on my end. So what's really great when we talk about stocks as part of some of your investment plan is that stocks is something, when you work for a company like Boeing, you can be one of the owners of the company and you have the opportunity to purchase stocks. So that means that you are an owner in that company. And let me just see if I can share my screen so we can bring up.
You should be able to. I turned that option
I'm going to go
you.
right back to where we left off. There we go. Can you see that, Wing?
No, can't see it. Can't see your presentation.
Okay, hold on.
This seems like what happened before we started.
Yeah, we'll just here. Let me just go ahead and we'll do this.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. You're the best.
Yes, thank you.
I always appreciate attendees spending afternoons with us. I really do. Like
Yes.
it's a middle of the afternoon and you're here with us learning amazing stuff. I love that.
Well, especially if you have a cup of coffee or some tea. I like to call this the afternoon delight time.
Oh, I love it. And yes, I have my cup of coffee.
All right. So this is where we left off, was the investment portfolio. Thank you, everyone. And we were talking about stocks. So again, I just want to share with you that if you're someone that's self-employed and we're talking about this investment portfolio, stocks is something where you may want to talk to a professional financial advisor so that you can take some of the earnings that you have from your company, or it's going to be something that you want to offer your employees. And when your employees take some of their earnings and contribute this in the form of stocks, that's giving back to your company to grow it. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this is something that I really love, risk versus return. And a lot of people, this is really where, when we're talking about savings and retirement, risk versus return is going to be probably the largest factor of it. And the reason is because if you look at the chart, if you have access to this visual, you are going to see that at the bottom of our chart, we start off with cash. As this arrow goes up, we have bonds, we have annuities, we have mutual funds and stocks. And you will see that there is an arrow that points up to the sky. And that is showing that when we start off with cash, cash is really simple. Most of us keep our cash in a savings account. There is not a lot of return that we get on a savings account. It's held safely. When we leave it in our credit union or banks, they don't necessarily pay us a lot. If you do tend to have $25,000 or more, you may earn 2%. If you are really lucky, maybe 1% on these savings, but there is really no risk. You're not going to lose any, you won't lose any of your money, so there's no risk. If you take some of your earnings and you purchase stocks, you do not have a guarantee of what's going to happen with that money. So there is a risk involved that you could lose that money, but there's also a risk that you could gain a lot, and that's where your return would come in. And something that I want to bring to your attention would be a great example would be of Amazon stock. So I'm not going to go into the long story of Amazon, but I am going to share with you January 2nd of 2020, I did an investing presentation. And I remember because it was the day after, the day after New Year's Eve. Or New Year's Day. I did an investing presentation, and getting ready and preparing for that, I brought some information on what the cost of stock for Amazon was that day. So for Amazon stock on January 2nd of 2020, you could buy one share for about $1,847. And when you buy a share, that means that you have a very small part. But again, that one share, if it grows, you're going to gain return. If it falls, that's where your risk comes into play. Well, let's fast forward. We weren't in, 2 months later, let's say 3 months later, that would have put us at April 2nd. And this was in 2020. So COVID had started. We were all at home going into starting about the third week. And the cost of Amazon stock started increasing. I'm just going to share with you, some people were able to forecast, hey, it sounds like we're going to be staying at home a lot longer. This might be a really good time for me to take some of my money, invest in Amazon. If we're stuck at home, if we've all been stuck at home for 3 weeks, and we might be stuck here another 2 weeks, because remember, we didn't know a lot about what was going on at that time. This would be a really good time because everyone's going to want to use Amazon. Well, Amazon stock went out the roof. Today, if you wanted to purchase some Amazon stock, when I Googled it, I believe that you could buy Amazon stock for $2,947. So what that means is that if you would have purchased stock in January, on January 2nd, for, let's just say 10 shares, let's just say you had $20,000, and you went ahead and said, you know what, I want to buy 10 shares of Amazon. If it was $1,847, that would have cost you, or it would have been an investment of $18,470. And that investment that is just about 2 years old would have just made you a little over $11,000. When I looked at what Amazon stock is going for today, it's about $2,947. So right now, the stock that you purchased for $18,470 just about 2 years ago, if you would have bought 10 shares of stock in Amazon, would now be worth $29,470. That's how stocks operate. Now, in between the 2 years, there have been times when stock in Amazon was the cost of $3,457. I've done a couple of these, and I just love to watch how much it is. So that is where your return comes in. That is a lot of money. That's over, $5,000 a year in return investments for your savings. So there's a really good example of how stocks work. And if you work at, Amazon, a lot of people do work at Amazon, and that is one of the benefits that they feature besides a 401k is stocks. All right, diversification. This is huge. And I love, for any of you that can see this, we have a basket full of eggs. And I love eggs, and eggs are very fragile. We know what happens when you throw an egg or you drop one. Well, if you keep all your eggs in a basket, what's going to happen if that basket drops? Probably all of your eggs, you're not going to be able to eat them. And this is why we want to talk about diversification. And that's why we talked about your investment portfolio. So diversification is making sure that for your retirement and your savings, that you're being diversified with your income. And that's where I talked a little earlier about savings, cash, stocks. And when you have mutual funds are diversifying your savings to go into not just something like Amazon, but something to go into medical, something to go into the energy. Windmills have been a really big product. So these are all different things that when your money is contributing towards the growth of those, the more that those grow, your income and your return becomes higher. The government's role in our retirement. So we've got two things that we're just going to kind of go over: Social Security and Medicare. Social Security is going to be government issued income. When you are going into the workforce and you get your paychecks, and we have our earnings, out of each one of those paychecks, when we are paid by employer and not self-employed, we have what we call FICA taxes, and Social Security is one of the items in that. So they take Social Security out of each of our paycheck. If you are self-employed, then you pay into Social Security. So what happens is when we are ready to retire, which again, for the majority of us is between the ages of 62 and 67, that's really when a lot of your retirement benefits go into play. You can retire earlier if you choose, or if you have some type of a job that allows that, but you really need to understand your retirement. But Social Security is something that is going to be some income that you receive monthly based off of your earnings. So if you are unable to earn income, then your Social Security will not be as much. And just so that you know, something else that happens when we go to work and we earn income and we pay into Social Security, that really does help our community. And that's also helping our citizens and our neighbors that aren't able to work. There are some people that just are not able to go into the workforce. There are some people that during their time in the workforce, there might be an accident and they're unable to work anymore, and they will receive some Social Security benefits. So that is just a really nice positive plus about Social Security. Medicare, once you reach 65, Medicare is a health insurance plan that will help when you are retired. A really great example would be, I know a gentleman that had worked his whole entire life. He was into about his 4th year of retirement and had a massive heart attack. Well, thank goodness for Medicare, because the whole point of retiring is that you work your life until a certain age, and then you don't have to show up, 8 to 5. You get to live in your retirement. But if you have a heart attack and your hospital bills are going to be $500,000 to $1 million, how would you be able to afford that? Well, this is why we pay into Medicare. Medicare is something else that we pay into in our earnings, and our earnings also help those that are unable to work anymore. I think that a really good way for us to look at when we are working and we're earning wages is for our older adults, that when they are in retirement, they've already paid into the system to help the generation in the future before them. And we just continue that path. If you want to have an idea of what your Social Security benefits are going to be, feel free to go to ssa.gov, and you can go on that website and get some great information. All right, individual retirement accounts. Now, this is something that is really great if you do have a 401k, but if you also want to go ahead and start these individual retirement accounts. These individual retirement accounts, we break them down into 2 different ones, traditional and Roth. These are really great and powerful for self-employed. Remember, there's a difference. I am not self-employed. I do not own my own business. For people that are self-employed, they don't have someone providing matches for a retirement account. They have to start their retirement account on their own. And that's just one more great reason that when you support local or you support a business in your community, you're helping your neighbors and your families thrive, and you're helping their future life. I apologize, that was my alarm. All right, we have 10 minutes left together. So an individual retirement account, again, you can go to your credit union, you can go to your bank, you can go to your financial advisor, and you can get these set up. There's great benefits. You've got a traditional, and what a traditional IRA, which is short for your individual retirement account, is tax deduction when you contribute. You pay taxes when you make a withdrawal. So this is later on when you go to retire, you can just put a little bit extra, money. A Roth IRA, you pay taxes on funds now, and it's a tax-free withdrawal. What I like about a Roth IRA is that if you are taxed now, when you go to withdraw, you're not taxed later, and that gives that account more time to earn interest. So just remember, an individual retirement account is something that you can set up yourself, and oftentimes your credit union and your bank have these available, as well as a financial advisor. Especially for any of you that are self-employed, this is really important information for you. Or this could be something really great that if you have a really small company and you don't offer a 401k, maybe this could be something that you could bring in an expert for your small amount of employees and share with them this information. All right, employee retirement plans. So here are just a couple different things. You've got a 401k, that is the most common, a simple IRA. An IRA is an individual retirement account, and a 403b. Now, just so that you know, when we use the words 401k, 403b, these are tax identifications. So this is from the IRS. They're called 401k, 403b because they're taxed differently. A 401k is a retirement plan that is not getting taxed going in. So again, just real quick, if you have an employer, you probably have a really good opportunity of having a 401k or a 403b. A simple IRA is typically something that we do on our own. Employee retirement plans. I did talk about this and I just want to share it again. The best thing to know about the benefits and features, when you are earning your paycheck, does your employer offer retirement plans? If you can't remember, right now is the best time to do a financial checkup. Find out if your retirement plan, what is the match? If you are not contributing, and if your employer will offer you 4%, if you put in 4%, that means that if you make $1 and you contribute 4 cents, your employer will contribute 4 cents. So you will have 8 cents out of every dollar going into your future retirement. This is the best way to do a savings. It's automatic. It's a direct deposit out of each paycheck. You don't even really feel that 4% leaving. And that's something that I really wish, again, that I would have understood. I didn't really understand a retirement plan and no one really went through how I would not have been impacted. My friend that I talked about earlier, I'm just going to bring her up. We called her Christina. She was someone that her boss said, you've got to, come on, you need to take some money out of your paychecks. Just do $50. And she lived in an apartment by herself. And she paid her own, she didn't have a roommate, she paid her utilities. She's like, I can't afford to put $50. He was the kind of employer at that time that said, I'll tell you what, you put in 25, I'll put in 25, and then you're still going to be matched. So for a year, he really helped out. And we discussed this, that she didn't feel the loss of that $50 because there are tax advantages when you have money that goes into a 401k. And again, I brought this up a little bit earlier, but it automatically gets deposited. So there's so much beauty in having this. And if you have a family member or a friend or a neighbor that is, just turning 18 and they're working through college, please ask them, hey, what are your retirement benefits? A lot of people, we don't discuss this in our family households. And so many of us don't really have all this information. So the more that we can share, and when we have fix-it fairs that talk about these things, we all grow. It's a great value. All right. How do you want to invest? Do you want to do it yourself or do you want to enlist an expert? So an expert, there is a lot of schooling that goes into this. There is a lot of protocol. If you do it yourself, you've really got to have the time to understand it and do it. For myself, I feel very fortunate that I have a plan with my employer and I'm someone that would have to list an expert. If you are self-employed, again, you can do it yourself or you can enlist an expert. And this would be a financial advisor. And a lot of times, if you have an account with a bank or a credit union, a lot of times there are partnerships already if you want to start there. If you don't know where to start, ask your credit union or your bank if they have financial advisors available. All right, let's see here. We have about 5 more minutes. How are the professionals paid? How are these financial advisors paid? Well, there's a fee for a service. Sometimes they're commission or sometimes it's combination. So I know from my own personal experience right now, currently my employer pays for this. So I don't feel any of that. If I was self-employed, I would be working with a financial advisor and I would be having to pay for that fee. But again, if I'm getting a return of what I'm putting aside for my investment, it's well worth it. And I'm paying for that expertise. All right, keys to success. I'm going to start really at the top, start early. And, this is with investing. This is the other thing about hiring an expert. Don't let your emotions drive your decisions. If you are not enlisting an expert and you are going to do all this research on your own, it's going to be a lot harder for you to keep your emotions separate And when you have to depart with some money, even just with the savings, when we talk about just setting some money aside for a savings account, we can see there's a lot of emotion. I shared with you, my friend Christina, $50 was a lot because emotionally she had to pay her rent and all her utilities on her own. Something else that's really great about when you are investing and setting aside for your taxes is that you get taxed differently. So what happens is you minimize taxes. So when you have a little bit of money taken off and out of your paychecks, you get taxed less. So sometimes, and most oftentimes, it balances out. Investing, make sure that you diversify. Remember that basket of eggs. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you drop that, then you're going to lose everything. And that makes it a lot harder for your diversification. All right, maximize the matching. Again, I gave you some really good examples of where an employer can offer 4% to match, that if you are willing to put in 4%, they'll match 4%. I also gave you some great examples of maybe an employer that goes up to 30%. If you have two incomes in your household and you have an employer that's willing to pay up to 30% to match, that's where you might want to reevaluate your income and say, hey, let's take 30% out of this paycheck if this employer will add an extra 30. And this is where you could, drive one older car that's reliable or start taking the bus. This is where you can make some of those adjustments and maximize that matching. This is also where some employers do offer stock options. So that's something just to keep your options open to, and a great way to grow your money for your retirement. Again, you have to remember that at some point at 65 to 67, you have the opportunity to stop working, but you are still going to have bills. The cost of living is still going to exist, and the cost of living is probably going to be higher. So this is why we are talking about retirement and savings now. Now what? All right. Well, analyze, savings and retirement inventory, risk tolerant, retirement plans. It's time to analyze and put an action plan in place for your future and for your retirement. Because like I said, when you turn 65, 67, you will have the opportunity to stop working, but you will still have the cost of living. And this way you can make some adjustments where they are necessary. All right, future retirement savings, start now. And adjust, develop a plan to review, implement, set reminders to review. Every year is a great, at the beginning of the year, if you get pay raises, that's a great time, and make adjustments if necessary, anytime you start a new job. And that leads us to the conclusion of our presentation of savings and retirement. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. I'm Lori with United Community Credit Union, partnering with Financial Beginnings, and Wing with the Fix-It Fairs of Portland.
Thank you so much, Lori. Can you hear me all right?
I can.
So now my video is giving me a hard time, but at least I'm still here.
All right.
If anybody has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But thank you. Otherwise, thank you for everyone for coming. Lori, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
That was great.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for putting on these great Fix-It Fairs.
Yeah, very glad to. So glad to.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.